Good morning, and welcome to the Rawls College of Business Center for Sales and Customer Relationship Excellence webinar, Great Minds Speak, the Future of Marketing Discipline, featuring Shelby Hunt and Sheth. We are using the Q&A function during today's webinar, so please place any questions for our speakers or moderators there. We now welcome Associate Dean of Graduate Programs and Research, Dr. Mayukh Das.
Thank you, Julie. Good morning, good afternoon, and maybe good evening to some of you. Welcome to this particular webinar. First of all, on behalf of Rawls College of Business and Texas Tech, I all welcome you to this particular very special event, having both Professors Jagdish and Professor Shelby Hunt in the same platform. So we are taking much of your time. I would like to introduce our Dean, Dean Margaret Williams. If you can take a few minutes to welcome the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayukh, and greetings everyone from the Jerry S. Rawls College of Business Administration. We're so grateful that you are joining us today and spending some time with us. I want to thank all of you for doing that, and especially our honored speakers today, Dr. Hunt and Dr. Sheth. It's quite an honor to have you join us today. I also want to thank Atul Pavadiyar and Julie Doss, Matthew Winfrey, the whole team that has helped put this event together. Appreciate your energy and the time that you spent putting this together today. And also a special thank you to Dr. Carlton Whitehead and his family for the sponsorship of this series. This is such a rare opportunity to learn from two of the most accomplished scientists, not only in marketing and business, but really from any discipline. Like Mayukh said, I'm keeping my comments short so we can really learn from these two distinguished scholars. And on a personal note, I really want to thank Dr. Shelby Hunt. His commitment to Texas Tech University and to the Rawls College of Business has spanned many decades. Shelby, we thank you for spending this time with us here at Texas Tech and for your leadership within the college. And I especially want to thank you for the guidance that you have provided me as still sort of a new dean within the college. So thanks to everyone. I'm looking forward to the program, and I will hand it back to Dr. Doss.
Thank you, Dean Williams. Let me introduce Dr. Atul Pavadiyar. Dr. Atul Pavadiyar is our director of our sales center, and he's also a professor of practice. I want to thank him especially for organizing this. He has been thinking about this event for quite a few time. I mean, it's been a plan in making for almost 6 months. So Dr. Pavadiyar, please take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Das, and welcome to everybody. It is great honor to have two of our most distinguished marketing scholars. And as Dr. Dean Williams said, is not only the marketing scholars, they are truly an overall behavioral scientist who have joined us to share with us their experiences, their insights, and their foresights into the marketing discipline. But before I go forward to talk a little bit about them, first and foremost, let me say that one more time, add to Dr. Das saying, welcoming everybody. Good morning to people. I don't know how to say good morning to people in Australia right now because they are at 3 a.m. So people at 3 a.m. has joined us from Australia, several of them from Australia. We have people from Malaysia and Singapore, which is probably around past midnight for them at this point in time. Also, we have many people from India. Good evening to people from India. And of course, we have several people, several academic scholars, as well as other industry practitioners who have joined us from Europe, including from Germany, Austria, Finland, Denmark, and Turkey, among those that I could count. And of course, we have people in North America. Good morning to all of you. In North America, both Canada and the US, as well as people from South America. We have people from Argentina and Brazil as well. So it's truly a global event, and I wouldn't have expected anything less with two of two of our legendary academicians come institutions by themselves. I consider them not only academics, I consider both of them as institutions in their own right, both Professor Shelby Hunt and Professor Jagdish said. There are many accomplishments you are already aware of, and I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of them in a moment, but it is a great honor for me personally to have been mentored by them. So I'm really, I'm humbled that both of them agreed to our request to come and speak to all of us. One important thing that we all know, you're all familiar with the fact that over 100 plus years, the marketing discipline has made tremendous progress. And in order to talk about this, we are really honored that we also got the generous support of the Carlton J. Whitehead Foundation. We have a retired professor from Texas Tech, Professor Carlton Whitehead, who also overlapped Professor Shelby Hunt. He's with us through his family's generous grant. This Distinguished Speaker Series is being organized. I'm going to request Professor Carlton Whitehead, and of course, I want to thank, before he speaks, I want to thank his family, including Tara Whitehead, Carla Whitehead, and Kirk Whitehead for your generous support. Incidentally, Professor Carlton Whitehead and Professor Shelby Hunt overlapped at the College of Business here, and Tara Whitehead was a student of Professor Jagdish Seth and myself at Emory University some time ago. So it's a great honor. So can I request Professor Carlton Whitehead to say a few words, please? You need to unmute yourself, please, Professor Whitehead. You're on mute, Professor Whitehead, you know. Can you unmute?
Gang, I'm just terribly excited about this series. I am particularly excited about today because I know my friend Shelby Hunt quite well. He's very distinguished in every way. And I also look forward to our other speaker, Charles, and I fully expect to have an exciting day. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Whitehead. And as I was mentioning that in the 100 plus years of the development of the discipline of marketing, we've made tremendous progress, but like every other discipline, there are many challenges and opportunities as well. Who better to reflect on it than Dr. Shelby Hunt and Dr. Jagdish Seth? Both of them have been a witness to the development of the discipline over at least 5 decades. I'm not going to mention the years when they got their PhDs, but both of them have been a part of the development of the discipline. And over the years, they have contributed to its development and have seen many issues that have also arisen. And like every other discipline, we have come to a point where the discipline needs to do some rethinking as well. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first request Professor Shelby Hunt to speak, and then after that, Professor Sheth. But quickly, let me introduce also Dr. Shelby Hunt. He needs no introduction, and if I read all his accomplishments, probably the entire time is going to be over. But let me say a few things, at least some highlights. Dr. Hunt is amongst the top 250 known scientists in both economics and behavioral sciences area. He has he obtained his PhD from Michigan State University and taught at University of Wisconsin in Madison. And in 1980, he moved to Texas Tech. And since 1980, he has been at Texas Tech University. He is the most honored professor, our highest honored distinguished professor at the university level. He is the Horn Professor, so he's a Horn Professor at Texas Tech University. He has won numerous awards, including the fact that he has won the highest award of the American Marketing Association as the Richard D. Irwin Outstanding Marketing Educator Award. He has also been honored with the highest awards from Society of Marketing, and 3 times recipient of John Maynard Best Paper in Theory Award from the Journal of Marketing. To the extent that he's won the award, that now the John Maynard Award for the Best Paper in Marketing Theory is called Shelby Hunt John Maynard Award for the Best Paper in Marketing Theory. He's also been a legend in marketing for the American Marketing Association. In fact, a whole set of legends in marketing series book was published and edited by none other than the other legend, Dr. Jagdish Sheth. So it's interesting and uncanny that the one legend honor the other legend. And in fact, Shelby Hunt has also won several Best Paper Awards from the Journal of Academy of Marketing Science, known as the Sheth Award for the Best Paper in Marketing Science. So it's a great honor that we have both of them together. I'm not going to go through all the accomplishments. You already know that he has been a tremendous contributor in various areas, including competitive strategy, marketing theory, ethics, macro marketing, philosophy of science, and winner of so many Best Paper Awards. With that, may I request Professor Shelby Hunt to take it from there. Professor Hunt.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, as we have been saying, or good evening, or good in Australia and other places, good yesterday, as I understand it. This particular webinar on the future of the marketing discipline is actually extraordinarily well-timed, because what we're doing right now is beginning the 5th stage, or the 5th era in the history of the marketing academic discipline. And today, what I'd like to talk with you about is the possibility for reinstitutionalizing the discipline in the era that we are just beginning. So if I could have my first slide, please. So formally, my presentation for reinstitutionalizing the marketing discipline, I'm going to make the case for its reinstitutionalizing. My talk comes from an article which just in the last few days appeared with the same title in the AMS Review, and it's available online right now. And I'm sure Atul or I'd be happy to provide you a copy with a full article where I develop the argument in much more detail than I can do right here in the 20 minutes that Atul has told me I should take. Slide, please. As I indicated, the marketing discipline is in its 5th stage. In era 1, 1900 to 1920, the marketing discipline in the United States and throughout the world was founded. I am not going to talk about anything with respect to the founding. In era 2, 1920 to 1950, the marketing discipline was institutionalized. By institutionalized, what we mean is it became a formal part of university system. The marketing area was set up in departmental format in almost all colleges of business and schools of business. And we had multiple courses offered within the department. So in that sense, it was institutionalized. And I'll talk about how it was institutionalized in just a minute. In era 3, 1950 to 1980, the marketing discipline was, as I put it, re-institutionalized. And I'll speak just briefly about how that came about. In era 4, 1980 to 2020, the marketing discipline trended significantly toward what should be referred to as de-institutionalization. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a few minutes. In era 5, which is the era that we're beginning right now, 2020 until question mark, whenever it ends, I'm going to argue today for the reinstitutionalization of the discipline, and I will provide a few suggestions as to how we might proceed toward that reinstitutionalization. Slide, please. So to begin with, as a preliminary step, we have to understand how academic disciplines are institutionalized. The sociology of academic disciplines is a relatively well done area. And the sociology suggests that one of the major requirements is that every institutionalized academic discipline has a distinct central focus of teaching and research. It's what the sociologist Robert K. Merton calls a, quote, cognitive identity. Secondly, an academic discipline has a body of specialized knowledge. Thirdly, disciplines have indigenous theories, frameworks that organize that body of knowledge. Fourth, academic disciplines sponsor conferences to develop new knowledge, academic journals to publish the knowledge, textbooks to teach the knowledge, and professional societies to basically advance the knowledge. And finally, and most importantly for us today, academic disciplines have doctoral programs that transmit the knowledge to the future generation of scholars, because it is through doctoral programs that disciplines, in a sense, reproduce themselves, right? If a discipline doesn't reproduce itself, a discipline faces extinction. Next slide, please. So, in era 2, 1920 to 1950, the marketing discipline became institutionalized. What was its central focus? The central focus was on marketing systems. To a certain extent, the economics area had been ignoring marketing systems and how marketing systems, such as channels of distribution, do indeed benefit society. So today, in today's language, marketing, the study of marketing systems normally is discussed within what we today refer to as macro marketing. But in 1920 to 1950, it was simply marketing. During the 1920s, there were 7 principles of marketing textbooks developed to teach marketing knowledge. A key one was by Maynard Beckman and Weidler. Maynard is a scholar that Atul mentioned, that the Maynard Award was named after. The reason why this textbook was so important is this textbook provided the structure around which marketing was going to be taught for the next 30, 40 years. And Maynard Beckman and Weidler developed the so-called traditional functions of marketing. And these are the activities that any marketing system must perform in order for them to perform successfully. So these functions and the functional approach became the way to teach marketing, and it organized the knowledge in 1920s. Then, as I mentioned earlier, you have to have journals. The Journal of Marketing was established in 1936. The next year, the American Marketing Association was founded to generally advance knowledge in marketing. And importantly, again, for our purposes, doctoral programs between 1920 and 1950 transmitted knowledge of marketing systems to doctoral students so the doctoral students could go become faculty and the discipline could, in a sense, reproduce itself. Next slide, please. In era 3, 1950 to 1980, the marketing discipline was actually re-institutionalized, and it shifted toward a very different central focus. And that central focus became marketing management, marketing strategy. Now, in the article, I explained details of how that came about, but I can't really do that here. But it is important to mention that the so-called marketing concept, which was introduced by the General Electric Company in 1952, was the touchstone that the developing area of and discipline of marketing management, marketing strategy advanced beyond. The marketing concept, as you know, focused on the notion that what we should do is understand consumers' needs, wants, tastes, preferences, and then use that information to go backward into the firm and develop products and goods and services that would satisfy consumers' needs. In 1964, the AMA founded the Journal of Marketing Research to further develop knowledge in marketing, especially knowledge using social science research and techniques. Now, because of the marketing concept, the issue of how do consumers buy what they do, where they do, when they do, and how they do became extraordinarily important. And so there was a tremendous amount of marketing relevant buyer behavior research that took place. For example, our distinguished speaker who will speak next, Jagdish, he and John Howard authored the Howard and Sheth textbook, The Theory of Buyer Behavior. Now, notice that they titled it The Theory of Buyer Behavior. They did not title it The Theory of Consumer Behavior. The theory was focused on why do people buy what they do, where they do, when they do, and how they do. It was not consumer behavior in a very, very broad sense. Many other researchers also, it's actually appropriate to say there was an explosion of buyer behavior research. There came a time in 1970 when a group of consumer researchers decided that they wanted to separate themselves from the American Marketing Association and found their own association, which they referred to as the Association for Consumer Research. And that was in 1970. They immediately began working on developing a journal for consumer research, which they founded in 1974. Now, ACR and 10 other disciplines, professional societies, sponsored the Journal of Consumer Research, and it was always intended and has always been an interdisciplinary journal. It never was intended, it never was, and it did not become, strictly speaking, a marketing journal.
Right.
Several years after the Journal of Consumer Research was founded, I attended an AMA conference when Jagdish was talking. And Jagdish said, with the founding of ACR and JCR, there will come a time when basically the consumer behavior part of marketing is divorced from marketing. I didn't believe it at the time. Later, I found out that Jagdish's forecast was very accurate. Consumer behavior did indeed divorce itself from marketing. Now, and nonetheless, in 1980, doctoral programs were still teaching marketing management and strategy, and the marketing discipline could reproduce itself. Next slide, please. Between 1980 and 2020, this current year, the marketing discipline trended significantly toward what can be appropriately referred to as de-institutionalization. There's been a tremendous fragmentation of the discipline, such that we really have no disciplinary central focus at all anymore. Instead, the discipline has evolved into 4 major areas. In terms of the number of doctoral students that are being turned out, these areas are in order: consumer behavior, which accounts for over half of all doctoral students being turned out from our doctoral programs; the so-called quantitative modeling area, which is about 25%; marketing management and strategy, which is between 15 and 20%; and macro marketing, a very, very small percentage. Now, the interesting thing is the consumer behavior area does not focus on marketing issues. In the first 900 issues of the Journal of Consumer Research, the word marketing appeared precisely 3 times in the first 900 issues. So the biggest area in marketing no longer focuses on marketing. Secondly, the quantitative modeling area. Now, quantitative modeling focuses on mathematical modeling. These are tools. The tools can be applied to marketing and are applied to marketing, but the focus is not essentially marketing, it's on the tools. Third, the marketing management strategy area focuses on, interesting enough, borrowing theories and frameworks to organize marketing strategy and management, not indigenously developed theories. And fourth, macro marketing. If you read the Journal of Macro Marketing, a journal that I helped create in 1981, and in fact, Texas Tech was one of the original sponsors, primarily the articles in marketing, in the Journal of Macro Marketing, focus on how marketing allegedly harms society. And finally, consider our doctoral programs. It is very common, as Manjeet Yadav, in his investigation of doctoral programs and marketing, points out, it's not uncommon at all for people to get a PhD with a major in marketing, and their total knowledge of marketing comes from one, I repeat, one doctoral seminar in marketing. We're graduating a large number of students who have very, very limited knowledge of marketing, even though they officially have marketing degrees and are housed in marketing departments. As a consequence, the marketing discipline runs the risk of not reproducing itself. Disciplines that don't reproduce themselves ultimately face extinction. Next slide, please. So what on earth can we do? All right. Here are some suggestions. As for the discipline fragmentation and the lack of central focus, I suggest that the central focus should be marketing management and strategy, and we should build on the works in Era 3 that significantly developed indigenous theories for marketing management and strategy. For consumer behavior, I would suggest that we welcome the consumer behavior people, faculty back into the discipline, but have them refocus on marketing relevant issues, not consumer behavior per se. For the quantitative modeling folks, I would argue that you shouldn't be taking 10 econometrics courses and one Doppel seminar in marketing and getting a PhD in marketing. I think the people that take all the econometrics courses can make a valuable contribution, but they also should know something about marketing at the same time. For macro marketing, I would argue that they should attempt to refocus on how marketing benefits society, because it does. That is, marketing does benefit society. And I think that should be a renewed emphasis for the macro marketing area. In general, for our doctoral programs, we should re-emphasize transmitting marketing knowledge. As Manjit Yadav said succinctly in his inimitable way, he said, why don't we put marketing back into marketing doctoral programs? Hello. Yes, sounds like a great idea to me. End of slides. Those are my suggestions. Those are just my suggestions. But I think the problem is there, and the problem is well identified. And if you take a look at the expanded version that appears in AMS Review in December 2020, you can see the argument in greater detail. Thank you, and I will turn it over back to Atul.
Thank you very much, Professor Hunt. That was an outstanding, in such a succinct way, you captured all the history of marketing and how it got institutionalized and probably lost track. I'm sure it's going to trigger a lot of questions that are going to come in, but before I get to the questions, let me now request Professor Jagdish Seth, or Sheth, as he is popularly known. Let me quickly introduce Professor Sheth. I know everybody knows about him very well. I'm going to start by saying that those of you who do not know, a business school in India under, I think, Vishwabhumi University, if I'm not mistaken, has, in its 25th year, just recently last month, have renamed the school to call it Jagdish Seth School of Management, or JAG-SOM in short. So, that the impact of Dr. Sheth is well known to other people. He also got his PhD. He got his PhD from Columbia University. From Pittsburgh University, and subsequently moved to Columbia University, where he taught, and he was, at that time, the famous book on biobehavior theory was also written. He's also taught at MIT, subsequently moved to University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, where he was the Walter Stelner Distinguished Professor of Marketing. Then he moved to University of Southern California as Robert Brooker Professor of Marketing. And almost now, close to 30 years, he has been the Charles Kelstad Professor of Marketing at Emory University. Again, if I like Dr. Shelby Hunt's accomplishments, if I start naming all the accomplishments of Dr. Sheth, then I will have no time at all. But let me say that he has been a fellow of the American Psychological Association, past president of Association for Consumer Research. He's also a fellow of the American Marketing Association, of the Academy of Marketing Science, won the Victor Mataja Medal of the Austrian Research Society, the Outstanding Marketing Educator Award from the Academy of Marketing Science, and also from several other places. And he's won all the 4 major awards, top academic awards of the American Marketing Association, including PD Converse Award, similar to Dr. Hunt, also the Charles Coolidge Paulin Award, and similar to Dr. Hunt, again, the Richard Irwin Award, and the William Wilkie Marketing for a Better World Award. He is, in addition to the academic work that he does, I must acknowledge that Dr. Sheth has also made tremendous contributions with his wife, Madhuri Sheth, and Sheth Family Foundation. in philanthropy. As you all know, there are several Sheth awards, Sheth distinguished doctoral consortiums, faculty consortiums, and more than 50 community institutions, academic institutions, healthcare organizations around the world are benefiting from the Sheth Foundation family. And for his services, the government of India this year gave the highest honor award that they give to anybody in the civilian who lives outside the country, the Padma Bhushan Award. So he was awarded the Padma Bhushan by the government of India. I have been personally, as I don't want to miss and say this, that I have been a great beneficiary of having learned, as they say, at the foot of the master. So with that, let me request Professor Jagdish to take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Atul. Thank you so much. I'm in the midst of two very good friends. Atul, you and I have had a long relationship, both professional and personal. And Shelby and I go back. I know Shelby did not want me to mention, but I will. We go back more than 50 years when we began to know each other. Basically, we have never worked together, but we know each other's work. We have made many presentations from 1970, roughly, pretty much. Shelby's presentation is very nicely done. I must encourage you to read the article. I already read the article. It's absolutely one of those articles that will win an award. I can assure you that. I will take a similar view, but come to maybe slightly different conclusions. Brief history of marketing is very simple to understand. Marketing as a discipline is only about 100 years old. Marketing as a practice is about 200 years and begins in England, not in America. In fact, the real founder of marketing practices we know, not trading, is actually Thomas Barrett at Pierce Soap, which is still available in the marketplace in many countries. So Pierce Soap really invented modern marketing, not Procter & Gamble as we think. Trading is about 2,500 years old, buying and selling. The old Silk Route, which from China to Europe, etc., one can talk about as a starting point, organized retailing, organized buying and selling. And selling itself, just as a persuasive technique from one person to the other in any endeavor of life, but even in products and services, is as old as the civilization. That's the way I quickly summarize. Marketing discipline got organized or institutionalized, as Shelby mentioned, around three things. Three schools of thought came together. First one was around channels, which was neglected by economists. It was never recognized as a value-add function in GDP calculations. Well, so there was an institutional school that came in all at once. Then they had a commodity school focusing on the product, the object, not on the institutions. And of course, the third one was on the focusing on the functions, what we would call a supply chain in some fashion, functional school of marketing. So three first very foundational things that took all of the descriptive marketing and organized into a codified series of knowledge and maybe propositions. It got further unified by the 4 Ps of marketing. That is a very pivotal event, and it still is popular no matter where you go, any textbook, you will see in marketing management 4 Ps as a foundation. And of course, there's product, price, place, and promotion. Unfortunately, with a focus on packaged goods industry. So our knowledge is very limited in marketing management, coming only from FMCG or consumer packaged goods industry. And of course, the economy has gone way beyond today, and better marketing is coming more from Silicon Valley than from brand management. American Marketing Association, as Shelby mentioned, was established in 1936. It provided the definition. You don't have a discipline without a definition or delimiting the function, and further unified the discipline in the process. Marketing Science Institute is a major institution that codified, institutionalized, actually encouraged sort of a marketing research or marketing discipline understanding. Was established in 1961. It provided seed money to conduct research on what is referred to as MSI research priorities. That document they produce every 2 years or whatever it is very important because it talks about the future needs of the marketing practice as academics can provide guidance, theories, frameworks, research. Both represented, however, what Shelby mentions, managerial perspective. Where is marketing in marketing? It was only managerial. Starting in the 60s, marketing began to diverge into three distinct subdisciplines, as Shelby mentioned. Marketing management, which morphed from 4Ps into competitive strategy, strategic planning, etc., which was a whole new area that came in mostly at the influence of Michael Porter and his thinking, for example. Consumer behavior, CB, it began to get away from market research and mostly influenced by social psychology, experimental approach. That's really consumer psychology, actually, in many ways. And marketing research morphed into marketing science, which I'll talk about. Unfortunately, they got separately institutionalized. And as Shelby mentioned, one of the ways to institutionalize is to have a university or a college offer separate courses. You separate textbooks, for example, maybe separate specialization for the doctoral program. So each one has also its own memberships. American Marketing Association predominantly identified with marketing management or marketing strategy. ACR, Association of Consumer Research, which I'm one of the co-founders in 1969, technically, but 1970. And that is focused on consumer behavior with their journals, their members, etc., and their conferences. And Informs is a much bigger entity, but within that one marketing discipline is organized, which is called ISIMS. And they hold their own conferences. Each one of these three are three things going in their own direction. Marketing management is what I will focus on first, and then focus upon CB, and the last one would be marketing analytics, as we call it. So marketing management is 4Ps of marketing, added more in terms of segmentation, targeting, and positioning, STP. Competitive strategy was the next area that grew in the 70s with all of these research on market share and profitability at Harvard, for example. Then ultimately the Michael Porter thinking. Services marketing came in. Relationship marketing grew enormously in the 90s. And now it is primarily dividing itself in strategy area into three areas. Social media has become a key component now. And of course, emerging markets is where more and more interest is given because the industry is going more toward emerging markets as the growth engine, China, India, whatever we talk about those. And ultimately societal marketing, which is just starting out as you see the publications in journals, as you see what is called the ESG, environmental social governance as an investment mechanism. In other words, sustainability is becoming a key issue at the corporate level. Shareholder is given way to stakeholder analysis and all the stuff. So those are the areas growing there. What are the new frontiers of research in marketing management or managerial marketing? I do want to mention that marketing strategy needs a new perspective. It is going through a midlife crisis right now, especially with the rise of CB on the one hand and marketing analytics on the other hand. So people don't attend AMA conference as the only conference to attend. They divide themselves to go to AMA or ACR or Informs conferences primarily. There are many new frontiers of research that can emerge. Main point I will make is that marketing will go back from strategy to managerial back again, which is where it really belongs in many ways. And here are the areas. I see the next decade, huge growth in marketing management. First one would be very much creating value for customers. How does a marketer create value for customers? And customer definition is no longer just a buyer as it was in the Howard theory of buyer behavior, but a customer is a payer also and a user also. So what can a marketer do to create value for the payer? Value for the user will become major area of research going forward and come out with some new knowledge. Brand valuation, independent of product itself, is very important. Discipline of selling, which is a third area. We have the selling as a practice, but we really don't have a theory of selling. We have theories of persuasion, whether salesmen are born, etc. But we really need a theory of selling as what I call a science of selling in some fashion. Similarly, pricing is coming back. And science of pricing is also very important to understand whether it's behavioral economics that we go to find out, or go back to the traditional neoclassical economics or marketing literature itself. But pricing, science of pricing is a very important area to grow, and there are centers being created. Reverse marketing. This, I think, is a neglected area. Marketing now begins with order placed online. In fact, you saw this Black Friday, Monday, or whatever happened, Cyber Monday, $9 billion were sold on Cyber Monday alone. Huge, huge market. We are going online first, and that means order taking is taking place, and it's all about supply chain management. I have even advocated and forecasted that supply chain may become part of marketing, and marketing and supply chain needs integration into one single department and a discipline. So that's reverse marketing, online procurement. Online promotion. We really have no understanding about how to promote online. We know mail order coupons, but today coupons are all digital primarily, and we have no science of understanding how sales promotions work in the online world. And of course, the next area that is growing very fast with the encouragement by leaders in the discipline is marketing for a better world. I think that's going to have a longer lasting areas. Others may be short-lived in some fashion. So marketing for a better world is very important. Marketing discipline and marketing management is really right now in that crisis mode, where to go next. Next is the consumer behavior. And I'm not showing the slides intentionally, but I can show the slides if you wanted to. I'll send the slides later on, and maybe I should have done showing the slides, but that's not my nature. Consumer behavior really begins with motivation research, qualitative research, codified very, very well, borrowing from clinical psychology. Then it went into opinion research or survey research. So it comes from the polling, public opinion areas. It morphed into multi-attribute attitude models. Then it went into information processing, Odyssey research, get immersed into the real world of consumers, how they live, how they behave, get the more ecosystem like anthropologists do, where consumption is an element. Then we shifted significantly toward behavioral economics. In fact, economists began to get Nobel Prizes on the kinds of experimental research or field research that we did in marketing all the time, understanding consumers. And of course, now the latest trend is what is called transformative consumer research, TCR. Areas, in fact, where there are societal issues, can we understand them, and what can consumer behavior discipline can enable policymakers, not just the marketing practitioners. What are the areas growing future in terms of consumer evolution? So here are the things. As Shelby mentioned, for the first time, focus will be shifting from buyer to the user. So I've advocated that if you really want to separate marketing from selling, marketing should focus on the user, selling continues focusing on the buyer, user and maybe payer also. So user experiences is going to be a very key research arena. And as we see online, all of the sentiments expressed online by different platforms, social media or e-commerce platforms, I think those are becoming very important databases to do more research in CB as opposed to the traditional study 1, study 2, study 3 experimental work in a laboratory. Social media engagement will be the next major area of opportunity. There's so much of data, consumer sentiments that can be organized, that can be analyzed, that could be made into predictive models, that could even provide explanation of underlying consumer behavior. That's the second major area. I'm very strongly about the third area called mindful consumption. I think consumers partly needs to be nudged, both by policy as well as by marketers, to not overconsume. So I have a paper in JAMS in that area by saying often overconsumption is not caring for yourself, caring for the community or caring for the planet. And what can we do as marketers to shape the consumer behavior? It is not just to respond consumer needs and wants, but to shape consumer behavior toward more and more mindful consumption. And this is becoming more mainstream now in thinking in terms of mindfulness is in general in psychology and human behavior is becoming a key construct and we can talk about mindful consumption. Next area is cross-cultural consumption, not across countries as we have done the research, but within the country. The diversity is rising all over the world within the country. US is a good example. We are truly a multicultural society. And therefore, we need to understand how different cultural anchor segments, not age, not ethnicity, I mean, not faith even, for example, but culturally anchor areas that we can do research. There's just so much more in consumer behavior that one can do research other than the traditional research that we have done. Large area of growth for opportunity is low income consumers, very large. Even if you take the definition of official poverty of $2 per day income, it is a $5 trillion economy served by unorganized brands and served by unorganized retailers. It is about to become more organized brands, organized retailers to the poor. And what does that do? Is there a policy implication? Most of them are subsidized by government programs, or they are protected by systems like a slum landlords, for example. Then how do you enter those markets? And last area growing very fast because of technology is consumption of free goods. Most of the social media are free. They are not funded by the user themselves. So price is not an important area. We don't have a theory of free goods. I think one can create a very good theory of free goods in the consumer area. And the last area, of course, is marketing science, as it is called, which is the old name, by the way. Marketing Science Institute was, again, science was the word. It begins originally with panel data in the 50s, longitudinal household panels. MRCA was a big one. Chicago Tribune, catering to the newspaper, through that panel, they did research for advertisers to advertise. And of course, scanner data came in big way, still popular. University of Chicago has the scanner data. I use it quite often, in fact, with one of my former students and my colleague. We write papers using the data, analyzing the data. It changed to operations research. Stochastic models became very popular. I studied that quite a lot in the 50s and the 60s. I shifted to multivariate methods. Of course, MDS, multidimensional scaling, conjoint became popular. Lizerl became the ultimate model. I very much liked factor analysis, for example, and I did a lot of research myself in that area. It shifted to biometrics, pupil dilation. Watch that, it's gonna come back. And brain research to some extent. It ultimately has shifted to marketing models now. Economics and choice models are dominating in thinking. And now it is morphing into marketing analytics, big data, and social media as the data mining techniques by and large. So what are the new opportunities in marketing analytics in the next decade? First one is we will shift from alphanumerical, numbers-based econometric crunching to text mining, which means everybody has to know and learn as a technique natural language processing. It's not something that we teach even in the classrooms. My doctoral students go to specialty seminars offered by some universities, often not in the marketing area, not even in the business discipline, to understand natural language processing. I think it's very key. Video analytics. Video is a major platform coming, not alphanumeric or basically, the 3 R's of learning kind of a stuff. We have no techniques for video analytics or theory or concepts. Emoji analytics. Emojis are growing very fast on digital media. Pattern recognition. I did some research in this several years ago. Fuzzy logic is the foundation in mathematics. Very important. It's used in every electronic device. When you have an imperfect understanding of information and the knowledge about a phenomenon, how do you add knowledge to make it into a representation of some sort? And the technique is very important to understand. I think it's a very powerful technique in marketing analytics. Of course, we do have the imaging research, not only brain research, but more than brain, more and more facial recognition. There are quite a lot of techniques coming about. And forensic research. This is what I'm doing a lot of research. Actually, who done it? Just like CSI Miami or Sherlock Holmes. There's lots of investigative reporting and investigative understanding as a science in marketing, which we don't know. With fake news now, advertising being used in an abusive manner. I can go on explaining where forensic research is a very important area if those who are quantitatively inclined. Here is the punchline. In the past, techniques were in search of data. We had techniques in operations research, multivariate methods, etc. And we were looking for data. Can we get the panel data? Can we get the scanner data? We were begging for the data to analyze. For example, that's the research I did, and I had many doctoral dissertations at University of Illinois on that side. In the future, however, data will be in search of techniques. We are spewing out data where the existing techniques cannot handle them and cannot make inferences right to be scientific, essentially. I do see the convergence among these three branches, not in terms of institutionalizing, as Shelby mentioned, but in terms of getting together in the same domain and the area, and therefore more interdisciplinary work can be done. I think the three institutions will continue, the AMA, ACR, and ISMS, for example. But here are four forces of convergence, and I'll quickly review them and then stop and then talk about any questions you have. First one is a common denomination among all of them now is emerging markets and the new middle class. The rise of China, rise of India, but more importantly, the rise of Africa, which is what I'm researching now. Very fascinating area where you have the analytical approach, you have the CB approach, and you have the managerial approach all coming together as a domain of understanding. Second domain we already do quite a lot is social media, especially user-generated content. And today with TikTok, YouTube, it's absolutely mind-boggling how much user-generated content is coming, and therefore the share of marketer-driven content is getting lower and lower, or broadcast content, which means content provider providing content as a share is smaller. User-generated content is becoming a common denomination to understand, and there's a convergence. Third area of convergence is sustainability. It is becoming an overarching societal issue, especially the triple bottom line that is advocated by United Nations as the new millennium goals. Corporations are getting on board, academic institutions other than marketing are getting on board in a very significant way. And I think it'll influence the marketing departments and disciplines to think about sustainability courses or sustainability consumption, whatever it turns out to be. And the last area, of course, is what we are already doing quite a lot, marketing for a better world, not limited to strategy people. Marketing for a better world is equally important in all these three subdisciplines of marketing. So let me, my concluding slide. The top journals, if you analyze recent publications, JM, JMR, JCR, JAMS, and Marketing Science are all converging their publications around these four external drivers of future of marketing discipline. What we need, however, is interassociation. How can ACR and AMA get together on specialized conferences? Not generic conferences that they do, but on specialized topics. Low-income consumers as a topic, emerging economies, and converge together as institution to institution, as we are asked to cooperate, marketing and finance, marketing, management, whatever we do in the university, or marketing and non-marketing, social sciences, humanities, etc. I think one can do within marketing itself some sort of an interassociation that can go on every year getting together so that we don't remain our own silos as we have driven. And our silos are getting deeper and deeper from a doctoral student production and graduation phenomenon. So it can be done in emerging markets. There may be an interassociation conference on CSR, social media, and sustainability. I think this cross-fertilization across three specializations will be very important going forward in the discipline. And in some way, the AMA Sheth Foundation Doctoral Consortium does that. Because there you select one student, no matter what discipline that student is from. Some universities focus on, in the marketing department, primarily analytics. Some focus on strategy, for example. Some focus on CB. They send the CB student who mix with the strategy students. It's a consortium that seems to converge in terms of inter-association cooperation, even though it is basically AMA, but all of the doctoral students converge there together and become lifelong friends. I hope this presentation has been helpful. I'm sorry I did not use the PowerPoint in my presentation. I should have done, which is typically academic approach, but it is there and I'll be happy to send it through Texas Tech, Atul Parvatyar, and my host. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Sheth. You know, you've heard two of the legendary marketing academics give you within such a short time a whole landscape of both history and the emerging future. And I think there's a lot of things, and a lot of questions have also come in. I'm not going to kind of take away the time from those questions because we have a limitation of time, but two perspectives that are very important, kind of just want to highlight on that one is that the disciplines, the institutionalization of the discipline probably seems to be facing two forces. One force is the social aspect of it, or the sociology of the discipline. The second one is the resources and the tools that are emerging. So both the forces are kind of working together, and there are a lot of questions regarding the divergence and convergence of the discipline. So I'm going to actually pass it on to Mayuk, and kind of he's been monitoring a lot of questions, and based on that, maybe request both the speakers to address those questions. Mayuk, please.
Thank you, Atul. Once again, thank you so much, Shelby and Jag. Now, we received almost more than 20 plus questions and comments. So thank you for all of you to do that. So what I'm going to do is, just for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of paraphrase some of those questions into groups and keep them to the point of what we have been discussing, okay? So one of the things that actually come up, obviously with COVID is one thing, it's a disruption in the market, and also artificial intelligence, which has been going on for a while. I mean, artificial intelligence 20, 30 years ago was quite different than what it is right now. As Professor Sheth mentioned, the need for NLP or natural language processing, I mean, it's still not there yet, because as a field, we still try to figure out how many words and things like that. But the jump to make the machine understand, a natural language and process it is still not there, at least to my knowledge. So that being said, if you think about it, the artificial intelligence has been growing and is changing a lot, and it has changed the way we perceive products, or even the way the companies are perceiving new products or develop those new products. So to both panelists, how do you see artificial intelligence is really going to transform our field in marketing, and also how do you envision that to happen in the future?
I'm sure that Jag can answer that.
No, Shelby, you go first.
No.
Okay.
I think that, to me, the question is way too broad for me to opine, certainly off the cuff. But I would like to comment on an issue that Jag raised, because Jag always raises issues that I think are fascinating. Notice how he said that it would be important for the three groups, he breaks them into the three groups, the ACR group, the marketing science group, and the marketing management group, that for them to get together. Okay, that's a major takeaway, that it's important for them to get together. I see no evidence of the trend being toward that. If anything, I see the distance between the three groups and the fourth group, which I bring in, which is the macro marketing group, which was marketing in a better world in Jag's language. I see no evidence that those three groups are getting together, or attempting to get together, or want to get together, or have the mechanisms to get together. I'm just not very optimistic about that. I think it's nice if it could happen,
Yes.
but I see no evidence that, if anything, it's becoming more fragmented, and that people can't talk to each other at all anymore, from the CV side to the managerial side to the modeling side. That's how I see it.
Okay, thank you.
I think the influence of artificial intelligence in general category is enormous. Influence will be much greater on the consumption side than on the supply chain side. Today, they are coming out with such much more capable robots, bots themselves. And I'm working on that in a couple of companies, really, actually, at a very early stage. They are quite either enabling the humans who are not capable of doing to become their personal assistants, clearly. So at the point of consumption, at home, for example, you have the whole population of people who are lonely. And of course, rather than go into drug abuse or something like that, these robots are becoming personal friends and assistants. It's almost like the little teddy bear. Think about how much the child latched onto the teddy bear. And what if you make the teddy bear smart and almost like human? It's happening pretty much right now. You see at places like retail stores, especially not Walmart, but not Home Depot, but other places where the greeters are now robots in many ways. People like it more than humans, surprisingly, because they guide you much better. They pay attention to you. So in many ways, I think artificial intelligence especially will create objects of affection. I've written quite a lot actually in this area. I was on the board of a very large IT company, Wipro in India. We have about, I don't know, maybe 150, 60,000 employees now. And we had demos about how in the retail store, especially like an Amazon, a retail outlet, for example, where you can literally through eye, using eye movement, drop the product into a cash register or into a cart, take the cart out all virtually across all kinds of retailers. It's massive, massive improvement in artificial intelligence. So consumption point will get more impacted by the robotic techniques, artificial intelligence, than the production side. Production side probably would still remain more manual. So that's the key, one difference. And since we all research consumer behavior, I think there'll be a major paradigm shift.
I have a question for both of you, in terms of from a discipline point of view, as so many things are, new tools are emerging, new techniques are emerging, new data is emerging. And also each subdiscipline therefore develops much more. Is there a point in time where marketing itself will find that subdisciplines will become independent disciplines by such, or do we see interscholastic and integration that takes place? For example, there's always a talk about supply chain becoming a part of marketing from that point of view. So, and how do we raise back the central question, what's going to be the underlying focus of marketing? We focused on consumer. Is it going to be based on what you said, macro marketing taking center stage, where we focus on the society rather than only focus on the consumer? So trying to kind of ask the question, what would be the central tenet of marketing?
In part, you started off with the relationship between supply chain and the marketing discipline. When Jag and I first started in the discipline, supply chain was a part of marketing.
Right.
Indeed, a very important part of marketing. And then through time, it morphed into business logistics. And now it is attempting to become a freestanding discipline in its own right. Now here at Texas Tech, of course, we recently broad supply chain within the marketing department, and we are marketing and supply chain management. But I think the scholars who are working in supply chain right now see their future ultimately to be independent from marketing and to be separate departments. And I think that's the direction that it is going.
Dr. Sheth?
I see the world of marketing in two different ways. One was an attempt we already made, marketing for not the packaged goods industries, but marketing for services, which was anyhow a movement, but also marketing for the digital world itself, which is very different. Silicon Valley does not buy the packaged goods thinking about branding and whatever we do typically. So in some sense, 4 Ps of marketing, and of course, the fundamental segmentation, positioning, targeting, the way we did it, I think is going to become obsolete. It has run its course, even though textbooks use it quite a lot still because it's a good framework to have it. In the digital world, the 4 Ps take very different connotation. And as more and more supply chain becomes dominant because it starts with the order first and then supply as opposed to supply. It's basically reverse marketing in some fashion. Some people have coined. I think we will question the 4 Ps framework, segmentation, targeting, positioning frameworks, the traditional knowledge that we created, which are great places to organize. I think they will be given way to a newer way of thinking. Newer way of thinking about what is the role of marketing as marketing as a function, primarily marketing as an organization, for example. And when you have digital products, how do you market them? Totally different as opposed to physical products or services, for example. So that's my fascination. I'm working quite a lot. In the 70s, as you know, marketing got actually very aggressive in non-profit businesses. Non-profit can benefit enormously from the traditional knowledge of marketing. And we do have a non-profit marketing conference organized by AMA. I think non-profit field is growing so much that typical marketing management, as we call it, will be very valuable. I've done significant work at a company that I sat on the board, Wipro, with about 150,000 employees or some ungodly number worldwide, about internal marketing, internal branding. HR people can learn quite a lot. I have a paper actually, what we can learn from HR and what HR can learn from us in some journal. It's very interesting. HR as a practice is very good, but doesn't have the framework or the discipline. They don't use segmentation, for example, just as a comment, you know. So there are many opportunities into that whole internal marketing area where the traditional knowledge would be very valuable. I also think that the knowledge would be very valuable because if you look at the history of marketing, it basically made unorganized products, unorganized, unbranded products into branded products and organized retailing. That's what we have done in marketing. So, and as
time, sir, unfortunately, you know, I wish and I planned for a longer duration webinar.
I'm sorry, yeah.
But as a closing comment, I would like both of you to have 2 minutes just to say, how can marketing make impact on other disciplines? So marketing has been blessed with also integrating things from other disciplines, but how can marketing make a greater impact on other disciplines? For 2 minutes from each of you, and then we can close the webinar.
Shelby.
Years ago, a great many of the marketing concepts and theories that were developed within marketing were transferred to other disciplines, and especially in the strategic management area. My students are always surprised to find out that Roe Alderson, long before Michael Porter talked about the importance of specific competitive advantage with particular competitors, Roe Alderson developed that in great detail, to me, what the discipline needs to do is to stop looking outside and solely borrowing theories from the outside, and to focus much more attention on developing indigenous theories that relate to marketing. And as a consequence, those indigenous theories would then be useful to other disciplines. As long as we focus on simply borrowing strategy theories from strategic management and theories from social psychology, then we're not going to make a difference to other disciplines. There's a reason why the journal Marketing is the most widely cited journal in marketing outside of marketing. That's because things are useful to them. And the other journals that we normally consider, frankly, is just a little circle of citations within the narrow list of journals. To have an impact outside, you have to do creative work within marketing, and that means in us developing indigenous frameworks, indigenous theories that can then be useful outside. Greg?
Yep.
Yeah, I think marketing is suffering from Rodney Dangerfield phenomenon. As a comedian, he always started, I get no respect from my own family members, my wife, my kids. I think the word marketing is so associated with selling, and selling always has been looked down by all cultures. So this is what happens. Marketing is the innovator, not an opinion maker. It invents things and other disciplines take over without acknowledging its roots in marketing. Market orientation is a classic case where management, literature, strategy people took over. And I can give you instances after instances where marketing invented, somebody else took the. Right now, the Nobel Prize that was won by two young economists is all field experiments of the kind that we did in the 60s. On, I mean, it's incredible.
Yes.
Or the behavioral guys who did all the research in laboratories, manipulating this attribute or that variable is all I did in my early days in consumer behavior, for example. But they never acknowledge, because marketing is associated with selling. So till we divorce the two, marketing will not have the legitimacy. I think the real powerful advocate for marketing was none of us. It was Peter Drucker, who came out with some of the most essential elements for marketing. The purpose of business itself, for example, is to create customers and satisfy, retain customers, which is not what they thought about it. But most importantly, that he said there are only two real functions who create value in an organization, which is innovation and marketing. Now, every nation wants to have innovation drive, invest billions of dollars in R&D. Nobody thinks about doing in marketing. A good product without great marketing is useless. But it's because of the association with selling. So as I advocated, and I'm supposed to write a paper, that as we divorce from buyer-seller framework and go more toward a user as an independent thing, R&D guys that I work with, I like to work with laboratory people, not with marketers. So they're thinking of buyer all the time. When you work with engineers and scientists at Bell Labs, for example, or GM Tech Center, they're always thinking about the user. So if marketing becomes more a user-centric discipline and buying is more selling discipline, now it might get legitimacy, because user is a common denomination for public policy people, common denomination for economists, even for that matter, definitely into social enterprises, for example, it's more universal. So I expect that to happen. Otherwise, our ideas will be taken by other disciplines without attribution, right? So that's clearly, so I call it, that's the key problem primarily. But it doesn't matter. My view is I think we can invent and we can discover more and more and more. And there's just inexhaustible resource out there. So one can still continue doing well.
So thank you so much. We have already exceeded a time, I'm just, we have gone past already 5 minutes beyond the usual time. So thank you, and you indeed. And it's absolutely, pleasure to hear both of you in terms of, look into reflect upon the growth of the discipline, as well as in terms of looking to the future. And the last closing comment that you mentioned was also very important. The marketing discipline needs to market itself. Probably that's one of the important things. Any last minute comment from you, Mayuk? Because I think we have any last comment?
No, I think we are good. Thank you so much. I think it was one of the best experience, 1.5 hours I've been in. So really, really enjoyed it. Dean Williams, do you have anything to add to that?
Just thank you again to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Don't have time, otherwise thanks to everybody who was behind this to kind of organize. Thank you, Professor Shelby Hunt, Professor Jagdish Sheth. Thank you, Mayuk. Thank you, Dean Williams. Thank you, of course, Julie and Matthew. Behind the scene, they manage everything. And thanks to all the attendees, especially people at different hours. You've all been awake to listen to this outstanding presentation. We will have the recording. We have recorded it, and very soon the recording will be available on our website. And we may also have the PowerPoints downloadable at that point in time. So greatly appreciate it. Thank you, and have a great holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.